So we get to talk about some NFC North rivals right now. The teams that headlined the NFL 100 game a couple years ago. I know what you're thinking coming into this game. Come on, we're talking about the Bears. The Bears. We had to. I mean, they're 3-2 right now. The Packers are 4-1. So in theory, this is a matchup for the division potentially. You know, this is one if the Bears were able to get the upset here. And the Packers have played in a lot of close games. So I'm not going to completely rule out the Bears here. I know everyone's rolls their eyes when they think about Matt Nagy, but the funny part about it is if, you know, the season end of the day, the Bears are in a position in which they might be in a playoff picture again. And if that happens, well, damn, how do you fire Matt Nagy, the coach that goes to the playoffs every year? It's kind of like a Bill O'Brien situation at that point. I guess the big thing is Justin Fields really developing. Now, I didn't really watch much of the Raiders-Bears game, to be honest. And it's weird because I feel like it never really came up on my Red Zone channel either while I was watching. Yet you look at the scoreboard, you look it up, and the Bears are just dominating the Raiders. So I'm asking myself, how are they scoring all these points? What did they exactly do that beat the Raiders? I think they had barely threw for over 100 passing yards or something like in that game. So it didn't seem like the most thrilling example.
Reminds me of that game last year where Cam Newton had like 68 passing yards and scored 45 points.
Yeah, like so every now and then you just have those aberration of performances. Now, I know Aaron Rodgers, obviously in these games against the Bears, just has been responsible for so much heartbreak in the city of Chicago as he just comes up with something late. The Bears defense is playing well, and just Davante Adams. Now, I think some stuff that the Bears could do well. I think they might be able to take Davante away because the Packers don't really have a great second option right now. Ever since MVS went on the IR, Alan Lazard has been asked to step up, and he hasn't stepped up at all for them. Robert Tonyan has just been gone this year. You know, his season last year, the 10+ passing receptions for touchdowns. You know, if you're a fantasy owner, you're cursing the name Robert Tonyan.
Nope.
But no,
the second option has been Randall Cobb this year for people.
There you go. Randall Cobb, you know, just I saw a meme earlier this year that Aaron Rodgers asking for Randall Cobb to be on this team is similar to Adam Sandler asking for Rob Schneider to be in all his movies. And that is pretty appropriate comp there for me because Randall Cobb, you know, his career is so, you know, decent slot receiver, you know, didn't really have great success in Dallas, Houston, comes back.
Got paid a lot of money, you know,
got paid a lot of money, comes back to the Packers, and he'll have a good couple games here and there, but I don't think you look at him like a true great second option right now. I think the best second option in the passing game might be like Aaron Jones realistically for the Packers. And for that matter, I obviously I'm picking the Packers to win this game. I think they just have a more dynamic offense that they can just make one or two big plays throughout the game that's going to give them the edge there. But the Bears are a team that we should know because, you know, again, they're right in the thick of things. Again, despite as much as we've kind of rolled our eyes at them, rolled our eyes at Justin Fields, Matt Nagy, how this team is put together, they're right there at 3-2. And hell, I don't know what to do with them in my power rankings. I had them at 21, but I had a 3-2 team at 21. Kind of feels a little weird, right?
Yeah, the Bears are a weird 3-2 team so far this year, which is funny because last year they were kind of the same boat where on paper they're like a 5-11 or 6-11 team this year because things are different now. But I would say they might win a couple games that maybe they shouldn't, and that'll help them out. They got 2 against I guess they beat the Lions, so that one kind of helps make you 3-2 when you get to play Detroit at home. That's one that you should normally
beat the Bengals, beat the Raiders, who we thought were good teams at the time.
Yeah, that is totally fair. What's interesting is that they haven't been generating a ton on offense this year, and that's not surprising. Like we all know the Bears offense isn't very good, but they don't have David Montgomery anymore. And one of the keys that helped them get to the playoffs in December last year was, yes, there are shortcomings with Trubisky. Trubisky's like a fringe starter. He might be the best backup in the NFL now, but you can mask those shortcomings with a strong run game. And if I remember correctly, I believe David Montgomery had like 700 rushing yards in the last 5 games last year. He was one of the best running backs in the NFL. And he came into this year and he played really well in their victories against, well, I guess just the Bengals victory. They didn't win the other one, but he played very well in their first 2 games. And the fact that he's gone now makes me concerned that Damian Williams, although Damian Williams had a pretty good game against the Raiders last week. If I remember correctly, I think the Raiders outgained the Bears on offense and still lost by like 14 points. But even still, will they be able to replicate a run game? Because if you take away the run game, either Justin Fields is going to have to perform like one of these weird, like 300 plus yard games as a quarterback and maybe rediscover Allen Robinson, who has basically just disappeared from the face of the earth at this point. Or I guess the alternative is just the Bears win one of these like 10-7 slog fests where their defense like takes away the ball from Aaron Rodgers like 3 times in one of those weird Aaron Rodgers type games. So I'm going to roll with the Packers as well. I don't think this one is particularly going to be close. I think this one might be like one of those 21-3 games at halftime that the red zone stops paying attention to once we get to the second half. But maybe the Bears will like storm back for a backdoor cover once they actually open up the offense with whoever's calling plays now. I don't know if it's Nagy or Bill Lazor or whatever the Bears are doing at this point, but I will take the Packers to win this game because there's no way that the Bears are going to be 4-2 and beat the Green Bay Packers here this week.
How would you grade Aaron Rodgers' season so far? Because Drew and I were kind of talking about this one. He's quarterback 15 on the year currently in fantasy. So he hasn't really lived up to his MVP season last year. Put a letter grade on Aaron Rodgers in 2021.
I will say B+, because last year was a weird kind of fluky year for Aaron Rodgers where everything felt like it was clicking every single week. And we've seen that Aaron Rodgers this year. They showed the splits on the broadcast of the game against the Bengals. He started the game 4 for 9, 44 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. And then after that, Aaron Rodgers went 21 for 23, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That's basically like a perfect quarterback rating for people keeping track at home. That's near perfect 151.7 or whatever the perfect QBR number is. So we've seen the glimpses of that Aaron Rodgers, but he hasn't put it together across a whole season like he did last year, or even like across 2 straight months or 4 or 5 straight games. Will that happen later in the season? I would guess not, but the only reason that's the case is all of the stuff that we kind of know about Aaron Rodgers, where his heart really isn't in it, and he's just 38 years old. Like, it's really hard to be really good at 38 years old.
Tom Brady's listening in the distance as he throws 5 touchdowns on the Miami Dolphins this past weekend.
But for every Tom Brady, there's also Matt Ryan, who's slowly breaking down in front of our eyes. And
Ben
every Phillip
Roethlisberger.
Rivers, Big Ben. Like, there are all kinds of examples like that.
Who's like in his early 30s.
Yeah, no, people forget that first year in the LaFleur offense, Aaron Rodgers was basically a game manager, and the Packers were the best when Aaron Rodgers was a game manager. And unfortunately, that broke down when they played a really good defense because the system wasn't actually that good. It's just the system had players that were better than everyone else's players. And I think to an extent that's still the case. But Aaron Rodgers has done more of that game managing type stuff, whether that's because regular season games don't matter to the Packers this season, that the only thing that matters is those 3 games in January and maybe February for the Packers, because they've proven that they're a really good team. We know they're a really good team. No one's really going to contend with them in that division. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe Rodgers' heart isn't in it all the way. I just don't know the reasoning behind that. It's not like he's been terrible. He had the terrible game against the Saints, yes, but it's not like he's been terrible this season. We've seen MVP Rodgers in the second half against the Lions, in the second and third quarters against the Bengals. Like, we've seen MVP Rodgers show up, just not the way it was last year. If you got him on your fantasy football team, I'm sure you're very disappointed by how this has gone, but I would say B+ for Aaron Rodgers this year.